Kiravel stood by the observation window of the starward drift and watched the stars drift by like scattered diamonds. She pressed her silver fingers against the cold glass and thought about the strange path her life had taken. 3 years ago, she had done something her people considered foolish. She had married a human dot. Her husband, Danny Ortiz, was sleeping in their small quarters just down the corridor. He worked as a maintenance engineer on the ship, fixing broken pipes and faulty wiring and all the little things that kept the vessel running. It was not a glamorous job. It was not the kind of work that earned medals or praise. But Danny did it with a quiet pride that Kiravel found beautiful. She was Velanti, one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. Her people had silver skin that shimmered like moonlight and large, dark eyes that could see in spectrums humans could not imagine. They lived for 800 years on average, sometimes longer. They had mastered telepathy and built empires, while humans were still learning to make fire on their little blue planet. And yet, Kiravel had chosen Danny. Her mother had cried when she heard the news. Not tears of joy, but tears of grief, as if Kiravel had announced her own death. Her father had refused to speak to her for 6 months. Her sister had called her a fool in front of the entire family gathering. Humans are fragile, her mother had said. They break so easily. Their bones snap like dry branches. They cannot regenerate. They cannot heal the way we do. And they die, Kiravel. They die so quickly. You will watch him grow old in what feels like a moment. You will hold his hand as he fades away, and then you will have 700 years of loneliness ahead of you. Kiravel had listened to all of this. She had understood every word. And she had married Danny anyway. She remembered the day they met. It was at a cultural exchange program on Station Nexus 7, a massive space station that floated at the crossroads of 12 different trade routes. Kiravel was there as a junior diplomat, representing Velanti interests in some trade negotiation she could barely remember now. Danny was there fixing a broken water recycling unit in the human section of the station. She had gotten lost trying to find the conference room. The station was enormous, and the human section was confusing with its narrow corridors and flickering lights. She had wandered for almost an hour before she found Danny on his knees in a maintenance tunnel, covered in grease and humming some strange human song to himself. He had looked up at her with those warm brown eyes and smiled. Not the nervous smile that most humans gave when they encountered Velanti, as if they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. Just a simple, honest smile. "You look lost," he had said. "I am very lost," she had admitted. He had wiped his hands on his work clothes and stood up. "Where are you trying to go?" She had told him, and he had walked her there himself, even though it was on the other side of the station, and he was supposed to be working. Along the way, he had made her laugh 3 times. She could not remember the last time anyone had made her laugh. That was how it started. Small moments. Shared meals in the station cafeteria. Long conversations about nothing and everything. He told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests, and the way the sun looked when it set over the mountains. She told him about Velanti Prime, about the crystal cities and the singing winds and the ancient temples where her ancestors had first learned to touch minds. He listened to her. Really listened. Not with the polite attention of someone waiting for their turn to speak, but with genuine interest and curiosity. He asked questions. He remembered what she told him. He cared. When the exchange program ended, Kiravel found that she did not want to leave. And when Danny asked her to stay, she discovered that she could not say no. The wedding was small. A few human friends from the station. A single Velanti witness, a childhood friend who was brave enough to defy social expectations. They spoke their vows in both languages, and when Danny slipped a simple metal ring onto her finger, Kiravel felt something she had never felt before. She felt home. The years since then had been good. Quiet, but good. They had taken jobs on the starward drift because it offered steady work and the chance to see the galaxy together. The ship was not fancy. It was a cargo vessel, carrying supplies to frontier colonies too small or too remote to attract the attention of bigger ships. The crew was a mix of species, though mostly human, and they had accepted Caravel without question. She had learned so much about humans in these 3 years. She had learned that they needed more sleep than Volanthi, but that they often refused to get it. She had learned that they formed deep emotional bonds with their pets and their machines, and even their plants. She had learned that they laughed at their own pain and cried at fictional stories and found meaning in the strangest things. But mostly, she had learned that they were gentle. Danny was gentle. He spoke softly and moved carefully and treated every living thing with kindness. When he found insects in the cargo hold, he caught them in cups and released them at the next station instead of killing them. When crew members were sick, he brought them soup and sat with them until they felt better. When Caravel had bad dreams about her family rejecting her, he held her and stroked her hair and told her that she was loved. This was what the galaxy did not understand about humans. They were not warriors. They were not conquerors. They were caretakers. They were fixers. They were the ones who saw broken things and wanted to make them whole again. At least. That was what Caravel believed. She had no idea how wrong she was. The alarm started screaming at 3 in the morning. Ship time. Caravel jolted awake in their bed, her heart's pounding. The lights had turned red, bathing everything in the color of blood. Danny was already on his feet, pulling on his boots with a speed that surprised her. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep and fear. Danny's face was hard in the red light, harder than she had ever seen it. "Pirates," he said. "Get dressed. We need to move." And in that moment, something changed. Something shifted in the air between them. Caravel looked at her gentle husband and saw something in his eyes that she did not recognize. Something that scared her. The ship shook like a wounded animal. Caravel grabbed the wall to keep herself from falling as another impact rocked the corridor. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear metal screaming as something tore through the hull. Danny moved ahead of her with a focus she had never seen before. His body was different. Not physically, but in the way he carried himself. Gone was the relaxed posture, the easy walk, the gentle way he moved through the world. Now he was tight, coiled, like a spring waiting to release. "Where are we going?" Caravel asked, struggling to keep up. "Away from the outer sections," Danny said without looking back. "That is where they will breach. We need to get to the interior. Find a place to hide or a way to the escape pods." The alarm kept wailing. Red lights flashed in steady rhythm. The intercom crackled with Captain Nora Vance's voice, giving orders that were half drowned by static. Caravel caught fragments. "All crew, defensive positions. Zorvathi raiders. Zorvathi." The word sent ice through Caravel's veins. She knew about the Zorvathi. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were reptilian, massive, covered in scales as hard as armor. They lived on the edges of civilized space, and they survived by taking what they wanted from those too weak to stop them: ships, cargo, people. Especially people. The Zorvathi slave markets were legendary for their cruelty. Species from across the galaxy were bought and sold there like animals. The Volanthi were particularly prized. Their long lifespans made them valuable. Their silver skin made them exotic. And their telepathic abilities made them useful for all kinds of terrible purposes. If the Zorvathi took her, Caravel knew she would wish for death long before it came. "Danny," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Danny, I am scared." He stopped. For just a moment, he stopped, and he turned to look at her. His eyes were still hard, but something soft in them when he saw her face. "I know," he said. I am scared too, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She nodded. Good. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. And no matter what happens, do not stop moving. They kept going. The ship groaned around them, metal bending under stress. Caravel could hear distant shouting now, mixing with the alarm. Screams. Plasma fire. The sounds of violence echoing through the corridors. They reached Junction 7, a crossroads where 4 corridors met. Danny held up his hand, signaling her to stop. He pressed himself against the wall and peered around the corner. Then he went very still. Caravel followed his gaze and felt her heart stop. The Zorvathi raider stood at the far end of the corridor. It was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall, its green scales gleaming in the red emergency lights. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and they fixed on Caravel with a hunger that made her want to vomit. In its clawed hands, it held a plasma cutter, the kind used to slice through ship hulls, the kind used to slice through anything. The creature hissed, a low rumbling sound that seemed to fill the entire corridor. It took a step toward them. Then another. Volante, it growled, its voice like rocks grinding together. Pretty valuable. The masters will pay well for this one. Caravel could not move. Her legs had turned to water. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to run, but she could not make her muscles obey. She could only stand there, frozen. As the monster approached, Danny stepped in front of her. For a moment, the Zorvata seemed amused. It looked at Danny the way a predator looks at a small animal that has wandered too close. The way something powerful looks at something weak. Human, it said, almost laughing. Small, soft. What will you do, little human? Will you fight me? Danny did not answer. He moved. Caravel had never seen anything move so fast. One moment, Danny was standing still. The next, he was across the corridor, inside the Zorvathi's reach, his elbow driving into the creature's throat with a sound like cracking stone. The raider staggered backward, choking. It tried to swing its plasma cutter, but Danny was already moving again. He grabbed the creature's arm and twisted it in a direction that arms were not meant to go. Caravel heard bones crack. She heard the Zorvathi scream, a high-pitched sound of shock and pain that she would never forget. Danny did not stop. He used the creature's own weight against it, spinning it around and slamming it face first into the metal wall. The impact left a dent in the bulkhead. The Zorvathi crumpled to the floor and did not get up. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Caravel could not breathe. She could not think. She could only stare at her husband, this man she had shared a bed with for 3 years, and realized that she did not know him at all. Danny picked up the plasma cutter. He checked it with the casual familiarity of someone who had handled weapons before. Then he looked at her. His eyes were different, cold, focused. The eyes of something that had been hunting since before history began. We need to keep moving, he said. His voice was calm, flat, like he had done nothing more unusual than fix a broken pipe. Caravel opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. What could she say? What was there to say? Danny reached out and took her hand. His grip was firm, but not painful. Steady. Sure. I know you have questions, he said, and I promise I will answer them. But right now, I need you to focus. Can you do that for me? She managed to nod. Good. Stay close. This is not over. They stepped over the unconscious Zorvathi and continued down the corridor. Behind them, the creature groaned but did not rise. Caravel looked at her husband's back as they walked. She looked at the way he moved now, the way his eyes scanned every shadow and corner, the way he held the plasma cutter like it was an extension of his arm. She thought about all the times he had been gentle, all the times he had been soft and kind and patient. All the time she had worried about protecting him because humans were so fragile, and she realized that she had been a fool. The man walking ahead of her was not fragile. He was something else entirely. Something the galaxy had forgotten to fear. The escape pod was small and crowded. 8 survivors huddled together in a space designed for 6, surrounded by the hum of life support systems and the soft glow of emergency lights. Outside the window, the wreckage of the Starboard drift slowly drifted apart, mixed with the remains of the raider vessel. Penny Delgado worked on Danny's arm with steady hands. She had found the emergency medical kit and was using it to set the bone and wrap it in a temporary cast. Danny barely reacted to the pain. He sat still, his eyes focused on nothing, his breathing slow and controlled. Kiravel sat beside him, her silver skin pale with shock. She had not spoken since they boarded the pod. There were too many thoughts in her head, too many questions, too many feelings that she could not name. Captain Vance was at the controls, sending out distress signals and calculating their position. The other survivors sat in silence, some crying quietly, some staring at the walls, all of them trying to process what had happened. Finally, Kiravel found her voice. "How did you do that?" Danny looked at her. The coldness in his eyes had faded somewhat, replaced by something tired and sad. He looked like a man who had been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. "It is complicated," he said. "I need to understand." Her voice cracked. "I thought I knew you. I thought I knew what you were. But what I saw back there, that was not the man I married. That was something else." Danny was quiet for a long moment. The pod hummed around them. Penny finished her work and moved away, giving them privacy. "Have you ever heard of the concept of a death world?" Danny asked. Kiravel nodded slowly. "A planet with extreme conditions. High gravity, dangerous weather, predatory wildlife. Very few species evolve on such worlds. Earth is a death world," Danny said. "The Galactic Council classified it that way when they first discovered us. They could not believe that intelligent life had evolved there. The radiation, the temperature extremes, the diseases, the predators. Everything on our planet is trying to kill everything else. It has been that way for billions of years." He flexed his good hand, looking at his fingers like he was seeing them for the first time. "Humans did not evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We do not have claws or fangs or armor. But we evolved something else. We evolved persistence." Kiravel listened, her heart beating hard. "Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We could not outrun a deer, but we could follow it for days, never stopping, never resting, until it fell over dead from exhaustion. We developed the ability to regulate our body temperature through sweating, which meant we could keep moving when other animals had to stop. We developed pattern recognition, which meant we could predict where prey would go and cut them off. We developed tool use, which meant we could kill from a distance." He met her eyes. "And we developed the ability to suppress pain, to keep fighting even when our bodies are damaged, to push through injuries that would stop any other species. Our ancestors survived because they refused to die. That stubbornness is written into every cell of our bodies." Kiravel thought about what she had seen. Danny taking hits that should have killed him. Danny getting up when he should have stayed down. Danny fighting with a broken arm like it was nothing. "But you are so gentle," she whispered. "You rescue insects. You cry at sad stories. You have never even raised your voice at me in 3 years." Danny smiled, but it was a sad smile. "That is the other thing humans evolved," he said. "We evolved the ability to live in groups, to cooperate, to form bonds. We learned that survival was easier together than alone. So we developed empathy. We developed love. We developed the ability to care for each other, to sacrifice for each other, to build communities and families and civilizations. He took her hand with his good arm. The violence is always there, inside us. Every human carries it. But we also carry the choice of what to do with it. Most of the time, we choose to be kind. We choose to be gentle. We choose to build instead of destroy. The predator sleeps and the caretaker wakes up. Captain Vance spoke up from across the pod. She had been listening. There's a reason the Galactic Council keeps flagging humanity as a death world species, she said. It is not because we are weak. It is because they know what we are capable of when we stop being nice. Penny Delgado nodded, her young face tired but understanding. I had an uncle who served in the Colonial Defense Forces, she said. He told me stories about contact situations with hostile species. Most of them ended quickly. Not because humans had better weapons or bigger ships, but because once the fighting started, humans did not stop. They never stopped. They kept coming no matter how many fell. It terrified the enemy so much that most of them surrendered rather than face more of it. Kiravel looked at her husband, this man she had loved for 3 years, and saw him clearly for the first time. He was not two different people. He was one person with two sides, the gentle side that built and loved and cared, and the ancient side that killed and survived and refused to die. Both were real. Both were him. Why did you never tell me? She asked. Danny's eyes glistened in the emergency lights. Because I wanted you to love me for who I chose to be, he said. Not for what I was capable of. I spent my whole life learning to be kind. Learning to be soft. Learning to control the thing inside me. That is the person I want to be. That is the person I want you to see. A tear rolled down his cheek. I never wanted you to see the other part. I never wanted you to be afraid of me. Kiravel reached up and wiped the tear from his face. His skin was warm under her fingers. Warm like always. I'm not afraid of you, she said. I am amazed by you. He looked at her, confused. You killed 7 of them, she said. Maybe more. You did it with a broken arm and a body covered in wounds. You did it to protect me, to protect all of us. And now you sit here crying because you are worried I will not love you anymore. She pressed her forehead to his, the Volante gesture of deep connection. Danny Ortiz, you are the most incredible thing I have ever encountered. And I will spend the rest of your life making sure you know it. For the first time since the attack, Danny's shoulders relaxed. The tension that had been holding him together seemed to melt away. He closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. I love you, he whispered. I know, she said. I love you too. All of you. The pod drifted through the darkness, a tiny bubble of light in the vast emptiness of space. Inside it, 8 survivors waited for rescue, and 2 of them held each other close, understanding each other better than they ever had before. They encountered the second raider at the cargo bay entrance. This one was bigger than the first, its scales darker, its claws longer. It saw them and roared, a sound that shook the walls and made Kiravel's bones vibrate. Danny did not hesitate. He rushed forward before the creature could react, ducking under its wild swing and driving the plasma cutter into the gap between its armor scales. The Zorvathi screamed and stumbled, and Danny used that moment to grab a loose pipe from the wall. He swung it like a club, hitting the raider across the face with enough force to send teeth flying. The creature fell. Danny hit it again, and again. When it stopped moving, he dropped the pipe and kept walking. Kiravel followed in a daze. Her mind could not process what she was seeing. This was Danny, her Danny, the man who rescued insects and brought soup to sick friends. The man who cried during sad movies and talked to plants because he thought it helped him grow. That man was currently covered in alien blood. And he did not seem to care. They met more raiders as they pushed deeper into the ship. 3 at the engineering section. 2 near the mess hall. One massive creature that seemed to be some kind of leader, wearing decorated armor and carrying a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Danny killed them all. He used everything around him as a weapon. Fire extinguishers, broken glass, electrical cables. He triggered emergency doors at exactly the right moment to trap enemies. He vented steam pipes to blind them. He used their own size against them, making them crash into walls and each other in the narrow corridors. And when he had no weapons, he used his hands. Kiravel watched him break bones with his fingers. She watched him find weak points in Zarvathi armor that even the raiders did not know existed. She watched him move with a speed and precision that should have been impossible for a species that everyone called fragile. At one point, a raider got lucky. It landed a blow that sent Danny crashing into the wall. Kiravel screamed his name, certain that he was dead, certain that no human could survive an impact like that. Danny got up. There was blood on his face. His arm was hanging at a wrong angle. And still, he got up. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor, and he kept fighting. The raider looked confused. It hit him again, and Danny staggered but did not fall. It hit him a third time, and Danny caught its arm and used the momentum to drive his makeshift weapon into the creature's eye. The Zavathi dropped like a stone. Danny leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His broken arm hung limp at his side, but his eyes were still sharp, still scanning for threats. "How?" Kiravel whispered. "How are you still standing?" Danny looked at her, and for a moment she saw a flash of the man she knew. The gentleman. The kind man. He was still in there, somewhere beneath all this blood and violence. "Adrenaline," he said. "Pain suppression. Survival instinct. Humans can take a lot of damage before we stop functioning. Our ancestors evolved on a planet that was trying to kill us every single day. We learned to keep going even when our bodies were broken." He pushed himself off the wall, wincing. "We can set the bone later. Right now, we need to reach the escape pods." They kept moving. Kiravel stayed close behind him, stepping over the bodies of fallen raiders, trying not to look at what Danny had done to them. She felt sick and amazed and terrified all at once. She thought about what she knew of human history. They had told her about it at the cultural exchange program, but she had not really listened. It had seemed so irrelevant. Humans were a young species. Their history was brief. What could they possibly teach the Volanti, who had been building civilizations when humans were still living in caves? But now she remembered fragments. Wars that killed millions. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. Humans fighting humans with a brutality that shocked the galaxy when it was first discovered. And beneath all of that, the deeper truth. Humans were not prey. They were predators. They had clawed their way to the top of their planet's food chain, not through speed or strength or natural weapons, but through persistence, through cleverness, through a refusal to die that bordered on madness. And then, somehow, they had learned to be gentle. They had built societies based on cooperation. They had created art and music and philosophy. They had taught themselves to be kind, to be soft, to care for others. They had buried the predator inside them so deep that even they forgot it was there. But it never went away. It was always there. Waiting, sleeping, ready to wake up when needed. Kiravel looked at her husband, limping down the corridor with a broken arm and blood dripping from his wounds. And she finally understood. The gentleness was not weakness. The softness was not fragility. It was a choice. Every day, Danny chose to be kind. Every day, he chose to be patient and loving and careful. Every day, he held back the thing inside him. The thing that had evolved to kill and survive and never stop fighting. And today, he had let it out. For her, they reached the escape pod bay. It was chaos inside. Crew members were scrambling to reach the pods, some of them wounded, all of them terrified. Captain Vance was there, directing people. Her uniform torn and her face streaked with soot. She looked at Danny, at the blood covering him, at the plasma cutter in his hand and the broken arm hanging at his side. "How many?" she asked. "7, Danny said. "Maybe more. The ones I dealt with will not be getting up." The captain stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Get in the pod. We are launching in 2 minutes." Danny grabbed Kiravel's hand and pulled her toward the nearest pod. His grip was still strong despite everything. His eyes were still alert. They climbed inside, joining a handful of other survivors. The medic, a young woman named Penny Delgado, was already there, treating a wounded crew member. She looked at Danny's arm and went pale. "That needs to be set immediately," she said. "Later," Danny said. "Launch first. Medical later." The pod shook as it detached from the ship. Through the small window, Kiravel watched the starward drift fall away, smoke pouring from a dozen breaches in its hull. She watched the raider vessel attach to it like a parasite. Then the cargo ship's reactor went critical dot. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a new sun. The raider vessel was caught in the blast, torn apart by the force in it. Debris scattered in all directions, glowing orange and red against the black void. Kiravel watched it all burn, and she held Danny's hand as the escape pod drifted away into the silent darkness, carrying them toward an uncertain future. 14 hours passed in the escape pod. 14 hours of waiting, hoping, and trying not to think about what would happen if rescue did not come. The life support systems hummed steadily, keeping them alive, but everyone knew that supplies were limited. They had enough air and water for maybe 3 days. After that, decisions would have to be made. Kiravel spent most of that time watching Danny. He slept for a while, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. She held his head in her lap and stroked his hair, careful not to wake him. In sleep, he looked peaceful. He looked like the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago on Station Nexus 7. Gentle, kind, soft, but she knew now what lay beneath that softness. And strangely, it did not scare her. When Danny woke, he immediately started helping the other survivors. His arm was still broken, wrapped in the temporary cast Penny had made, but he used his good hand to pass out ration packs and water. He sat with a young crew member who was having trouble breathing, talking him through a panic attack with calm, patient words. He helped Captain Vance recalculate their position, offering suggestions based on his knowledge of the ship's systems. He was taking care of people. Just like always, Kiravel thought about her mother's words. Humans are fragile. They break so easily. She had believed those words once. She had spent 3 years worrying about Danny, treating him like something delicate that needed protection done. Now she realized the truth. Danny did not need her protection. He never had. What he needed was her love. What he needed was someone who saw him as more than just a maintenance engineer, more than just a fragile human, more than just a species to be pitied or overlooked. He needed someone who saw all of him dot around hour 12. Penny approached Kiravel while Danny was helping Captain Vance with the communication systems. "Can I ask you something?" The young medic said. Kiravel nodded. "What is it like? Being married to a human?" Kiravel thought about the question. 3 years ago, she would have answered with practical details. The challenges of different sleep cycles, the adjustments for different dietary needs, the sadness of knowing she would outlive him by centuries. Now she answered differently. "It is like holding fire in your hands," she said. "It is warm and bright and beautiful. And yes, it can burn you if you are not careful. But the warmth is worth the risk. The light is worth the darkness that will come later." She looked at Danny across the pod, watching him explain something to the captain with animated gestures despite his broken arm. "Humans feel everything so deeply," she continued. They live such short lives, but they pack so much into them. Every moment matters to them. Every connection is precious. They love like they are running out of time, because they are. And that intensity, that passion, that desperate hunger to experience everything before it ends, it changes you. It makes you appreciate things you never noticed before. Penny nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. He killed all those raiders, she said. With his bare hands, mostly. I have never seen anything like it. Neither had I. Does it bother you, knowing what he can do? Kiravel considered the question carefully. No, she said finally, because he only did it to protect us. That violence, that terrible power inside him, he keeps it locked away. He chooses not to use it. Every day, he makes that choice. And that choice, that constant, deliberate decision to be gentle when he could so easily be brutal, that is the most beautiful thing about him. She smiled. He is not gentle because he has to be. He is gentle because he wants to be. That makes all the difference. The rescue ship arrived in hour 14. It was a patrol vessel from the nearest colony, responding to their distress signal. The survivors were brought aboard one by one, given medical attention and warm blankets and food that was not emergency rations. Danny's arm was properly set by the ship's doctor, a tall Rylaxian with 4 arms and a gentle bedside manner. The doctor marveled at how well the bone was healing already, commenting on the remarkable regenerative abilities of humans. Your species is quite something, the doctor said. I have treated humans before, but I'm always amazed at how much damage they can survive. Danny just shrugged with his good shoulder. We are stubborn. Later, when they were alone in the small cabin assigned to them, Kiravel finally asked the question that had been forming in her mind for hours. What happens now? Danny looked at her. His face was tired, bruised, marked with cuts that were already starting to heal. But his eyes were warm again. The coldness was gone, replaced by the gentle gaze she knew so well. What do you mean? I mean us. Our life. What happens now that I know the truth about you? Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out with his good hand and took hers. I am still the same person, he said. I still love you. I still want to spend every day making you happy. I still want to grow old with you, even if my old is much sooner than yours. None of that has changed. But I have changed, Kiravel said. I have seen what you really are. I cannot unsee it. Does that bother you? She moved closer to him, pressing herself against his side, careful of his injured arm. It bothers me that I did not see it sooner, she said. It bothers me that I spent 3 years thinking I needed to protect you when you were protecting me the whole time. It bothers me that I almost missed the truth because I was too focused on what I expected to see. She tilted her head to look up at him. But it does not bother me to know who you really are. It makes me love you more, not less. Danny's eyes glistened. Really? Really. She reached up to touch his face. You are a predator who chose to be kind. You are a warrior who chose to be gentle. You are the most dangerous thing I have ever encountered, and you use that danger to protect the people you love. How could I not love that? She kissed him then, soft and slow, pouring everything she felt into that moment. He kissed her back, his good arm wrapping around her, holding her close. When they finally pulled apart, he was smiling. That gentle smile she had fallen in love with so long ago. I was so afraid, he admitted. I thought if you ever saw that side of me, you would leave. You would realize you had married a monster. Kiravel shook her head. You are not a monster. Monsters do not choose. Monsters do not control themselves. Monsters do not feel remorse or love or kindness. You are something much more incredible than a monster. She pressed her forehead to his again. You are human, and I would not have you any other way. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the small cabin as the rescue ship carried them towards safety. Outside the window, the stars drifted by like scattered diamonds. Kiravel thought about the future. Someday, Danny would grow old. Someday, she would lose him. Someday, she would have centuries of life ahead of her and only memories of the man she loved. But today, he was here. Today, he was alive. Today, she understood him better than ever before. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.